Hey, looking for a podcast where you can hear from some of the great hockey legends of all time, hear them tell some great stories, find out what they're up to today? Well, this is the right place. It's the Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Reda. Today's guest, a 16-year NHL veteran and Calgary Flames legend who captained their only Stanley Cup Championship. Flames franchise record holder for most goals in a single season. Played in over 1,100 NHL games, scored over 1,000 points. The first Calgary Flame to have his jersey number retired, was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1992, and has spent the last 9 years as the chairman of the board of the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's my buddy, Lanny McDonald. How are you, my friend?
I am doing absolutely great, and it's great to be on with you, and can't thank you enough for what you did and help out with our Hall of Fame induction weekend, which turned out to be fabulous.
We should point out for those who are tracking what you're talking about, you and I have been buddies for a very, very long time, and we've worked together at the Hockey Hall of Fame for a very, very long time. We go through that whole weekend of the induction ceremony where the inductees come in, and we do a question and answer thing with the fans and the Legends game, and then the actual induction ceremony. And for all those years, Lanny, you were the chairman of the board, and that was your last Hall of Fame induction this past November. And you got pretty emotional, my friend.
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, 10 years flew by.
Yeah.
And for me, if you love the game and love the history of the game, what better place to be than chairman of the Hockey Hall of Fame? And to add on to that, talking about Johnny and Matthew Goodrow, one of the saddest things that have happened in the game of hockey. It's a tragedy that has so many layers to it, and it was emotional. But you know what? I am so happy that Mike Gardner has agreed to come on as our next chairman, and he will be absolutely fabulous. Colleen and him are great people, and he'll do a great job.
It's going to be fun. For those of you who can see the video of this podcast right now, if you're not just listening, but watching the video, the consummate professional that my buddy Lanny is, you've got your Team Canada uni there, your red on, and you've got the Stanley Cup over your left shoulder. Good job, buddy. Way to mark it out there. This is good work by you.
Well, thank you. You know what? Just having a little fun like you do each and every weekend, and it's so great to talk about this great game and the great people that are in the game.
Listen, I want to take you back to a moment that, as a broadcaster, I was covering it, and you were obviously central in it. Was the Stanley Cup Final that you were involved in, Game 6. You were facing the Montreal Canadiens, and I thought this was so appropriate because you were 16 seasons into your NHL career at that point. You had spent 7 years with the Toronto Maple Leafs, 3 with the Colorado Rockies, and then with the Calgary Flames. You were sitting on 500 career NHL goals, which in and of itself is an incredible milestone. We're tied 1-1 in the second period of Game 6, the biggest goal of your NHL career. I've had Hakan Lube and Joey Newendike on this podcast to talk about that goal. You give me your recollection of the goal that probably changed your life and the franchise history of the Calgary Flames.
Well, first of all, I had a great chance to score just before I took a bad penalty trying to get the puck back after Patrick Waugh made a save and hooked Bobby Smith over along the boards. I'm sitting in the penalty box, and being a good Catholic boy, I said 400 Hail Marys in a 2-minute span. Yeah. And it obviously worked because the boys killed off the penalty, and I come out of the penalty box, jump into the play, and Jamie McCowan tells the story a little differently. He fed it up to Hakan Lube, and then he says, I cut him off, or he would have been the hero in that game. And that play, Hakan Lube and Joey Newendike are killing the last part of that penalty, go straight up center ice. I cut behind Hakan Lube, he throws it over to Nieuwendyk, and Nieuwendyk throws the pass in one motion. And he fires it hard, but it was right between Chelios's stick and skates, right onto my tape. And we knew if Patrick Roy comes across, he's going to get as big as possible, sliding across spread eagle, and you got to go top shelf. And when that puck went in, it was like, okay, blow the whistle, end the game right here. Well, it didn't quite work that way, but we held on to win. It was awesome.
It was a lead you guys never relinquished. You did it. Now, because of the situation of the game, I'm assuming you never kept that puck, but that's a memorable cup, or did you?
No, I never got that puck, and I'm just fine with it. Whoever has that puck, enjoy it as much as I can close my eyes and know exactly how it went in. And we've celebrated this. We just had our 35th anniversary last year, and it's crazy how fast time flies by.
It is amazing. And you know what? That playoff run, I mean, it came so close a couple of times to not even making it that far to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, because you guys beat the Canucks in the opening round, and it took 7 games, and it took overtime in Game 7. Yeah. What was that like for you?
Well, it was unbelievable. I remember a memorable speech by Cliff Fletcher. I think it was after Game 4 in Vancouver, where he kicked everyone else off the team bus and talked to the players themselves after the game. And it kind of lit a fire under all of us. And without Mike Vernon playing as great as he did through that entire series, we might never have had a chance. In overtime, he stopped Stan Smeel on a breakaway, stopped Patrick Skriko and Lume.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't Lume. Trying to think of the other guy on one-timers, all in overtime. And we find a way to get the puck back up the ice, and everyone thinks now, oh, that goal shouldn't have counted because maybe it was in the crease. Hey, you can't go back. The game is over, and we're moving on to LA, Chicago, and then Montreal.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned LA. That was the same playoff run where Gretzky and the Kings now, because he had just been dealt previously before that, had just upset, a big upset over the Edmonton Oilers in the opening round. You get Gretz and the Kings, and you and I were joking before we actually started recording today about me having the Gretzky jersey behind me, because the animosity between you guys, I mean, you're buddies now, but between the Flames and Oilers in that day, and you guys kicked Wayne's butt in that playoff series. You guys swept them.
Well, we did, but it wasn't without a lot of hard work and a lot of physical play. There are a couple 5-on-5 line brawls out there, good old-time hockey that we didn't shy away from. We had a team that could play tough. We could skate with people, and we could try and outscore people. We had great goal scorers like Håkan Loob, like Joey Mullen, Nieuwendyk, Roberts. The list went on, and it was great to be a part of that. And that cements a friendship with all those guys for life.
Yeah, and you know what? Listen, the fact that it's always nice to win the Stanley Cup on home ice because the place goes crazy. But you guys won in the Montreal Forum. Nobody beats the Habs and parades the Stanley Cup around in the Montreal Forum as a visitor. What was that like for you guys when the clock finally did tick down? It was over, and you were a Stanley Cup champion.
You know, Gino, in '86, even though we lost to Montreal and we thought we had the better team, Patrick Roy stole the show. Yeah. And we go into Game 6, and everyone said, we cannot afford to go back home. We have to finish this off now in case he gets hot and finds a way to win Game 7. And to be the only team to win in Montreal form was unbelievable. And when you think about that, that is absolutely crazy. They never lost it on home ice before. And that ride home, and there's a great story because the trainers came to the captains and said, "We can cut the locks off the Stanley Cup, which was down underneath the plane." They said, "What do you think?" We said, "Absolutely, bring it up, hide it in the washroom." We got about 20 minutes out of Montreal, and they had put a out of order sign on the washroom. And Al Murray, our trainer who came up with the idea, brought the Stanley Cup out of the washroom while the party was on the rest of the way home. And it was so great. And the fact that Mike Vernon, who went into the Hockey Hall of Fame a year ago, he outplayed Patrick Roy on this one. And going back to 86, you thought you were going right back again the next year, and it took us 3 more years.
Yeah. And here's the interesting part about it is, I mean, it's the ultimate dream, right? You're wrapping up your NHL career, you're ready to retire, and you finish on top. Had you already decided before the season or before the cup final, win or lose, this is it for me?
Well, it's very easy to walk away. And I always loved the way Jean Beliveau, who I believe in 71, when they won the cup, he could have played 3 or 4 more years. He was one of their leading scorers. And I just think he set the example by walking out on top. And it became, after we won, it became a very easy decision. No, It's time to go.
Yeah. And you know what I think is really special, because I've been so blessed to actually be on the ice when the celebrations are happening at a Stanley Cup victory. And the thing that I always find amazing is, as soon as guys, as soon as the ice is opened up after the presentation of the cup is done and the families come out there on the ice or in the dressing rooms, it's watching guys bring the cup to their spouses or to their parents or to their siblings and celebrate. And there's a really, really cool story about when your dad actually got to touch the Stanley Cup.
Well, we had the Stanley Cup here at the house, I think for 2.5 days. And it was so much fun. We had all the neighbors in. We had the team in pretty much for a day and a half. No one went home. Had a band out in the backyard playing music. The neighbors loved it. But to see my dad sitting at the coffee table and like running his fingers over the names on the Stanley Cup, he was a stay-at-home defenseman, captain of his team, the Handhill Bronx in the number 9 Highway League. And he was just, Dad didn't say a whole lot. He smiled with his eyes, and you could not get that smile off his face or that twinkle out of his eyes when he just had a chance to just be that close to the cup for that long.
And to see his kid's name on the cup. That's amazing.
Well, the cool part was it goes L. McDonald. And his name was Lorne McDonald.
Perfect.
So it really looked like, hey, Dad, we're sharing this. And yeah, it was a fun time.
The cool thing is, you're from a town, and I want to pronounce this right. Is it Craigmile? Craigmile, Alberta?
Craigmile, Alberta, very close to Hannah. And there's quite a story there, Gino. It used to be home. Hannah used to be home of, that's where I played all my minor hockey, home of Jim Nill and Lanny McDonald. And then Nickelback came along, backed over our sign. Now it's proud home of Nickelback. My God, when it's over, it's over.
A town of 136 people, you end up being a Stanley Cup champion. That is pretty stinking awesome. Let me take you back to when it started. When you were still just a kid, just a teenager, you're from out there, and you get drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you're an Alberta boy.
Yeah.
There's the Flames, there's the Oilers, there's teams in Western Canada you could have been a part of, but you get drafted 4th overall in the 1973 entry draft by the Toronto Maple Leafs. What was that like for you?
Interesting story there, because I was a Toronto fan. My dad was a huge Toronto fan as well. And Vancouver had the 3rd pick that year. And because I was a Westerner, I thought, oh my gosh, even though I wanted to go to Toronto, I might end up in Vancouver. And they took Dennis Ververgaert with the 3rd pick. And now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got a chance here. And when they call your name, it was like, wow, that is so good. And couldn't be happier to be the newest member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as happy as I was, I think my dad was even happier.
Get ready for the game with the Domino's $8.99 mix and match deal. Score big with any medium 2-topping pizza and any 2 items like pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Domino's has you covered. Order today from Canada's favorite pizza at domino's.ca.
And a success pretty fast. You had a 37-goal season, your 3rd NHL season. Then your 4th, 5th, and 6th season, all of them were 40-plus goal seasons. And you got to play with your buddy, Daryl Sittler. I know you guys are incredibly tight, have been over the years. What was that like to get a chance to play with Daryl?
Well, it was so much fun. And he played, obviously, on the first line all the time. And he played either with Ronnie Ellis, one of my heroes, or Rick Kehoe. And Rick got traded to Pittsburgh. And Ronnie Ellis was unbelievable. He taught me what it would take. And he said, here's what you got to do. And he was always being a great mentor. And I said, Ronnie, like, you're doing this, and someday maybe I'm going to take your place. And he said, never forget that. That's what we do. You pass it on, you pay it forward. And to have a chance to play with Daryl and Daryl, Errol Thompson, and myself were only together for 1 game. And Red Kelly, we had talked him into letting us play together. And Red Kelly, bless his heart, said, no, I can't put all my eggs in one basket. I'm going to break you guys up again. Because we had tied Washington 4-4. And the very next game, we had said, let us play together for 1 week. If it doesn't work, okay, fine. And the very next game, Daryl scores 10 points in 1 game. And they never split us up after that for years. And then Tiger became the left winger on that line. And Daryl and I have had this great friendship. Our kids know each other. Our grandkids know each other. We don't talk about goals and assists anymore. We talk about kids and grandkids.
I want to talk about a goal in particular. The Islanders were in the midst of their dynasty. You're in the 1978 playoffs. You're down 2-0 to the Islanders. You come back, you force a Game 7. At this point, you're a machine. You're playing with what was a broken nose and a broken wrist, and you're out there.
Broken nose, broken wrist. I still blame my golf game on that broken wrist, because every time I think I've got it figured out, I haven't. But you know what? Everyone was beat up. Boreas Holming in the middle of that series it got hurt and couldn't finish the series. Ian Turnbull had a bad knee. Daryl had a bad knee. Tiger, I think, had a bad shoulder. And we just found a way. Roger Nielsen had a game plan, and we stuck to it. And Mike Palmatier stood on his head that entire time. And I think, obviously, the Islanders learned from that, because they went on the next 4 years to win the Cup 4 years in a row.
Yeah, they won 4. Now, just to finish that story, you scored the game winner with that broken nose and broken wrist in Game 7. That sent the Leafs to the first semifinal in 11 years on that run. So that was great. You ultimately lost the Canadians, but that was great. Now I want to take you to December of 1979, a life-changing moment. Your wife, I believe at that point, your wife was just 2 weeks away from giving birth. It was just 3 days after Christmas. Everything seemed to be going good, but here's the issue. Punch Imlach had taken over as the Leafs general manager. He was not a fan of Daryl Sittler, and he knew that you and Sittler were best buddies. Sitt had the no trade clause, so Punch couldn't move Sitt. Tell our fans what ended up happening there, and the bad blood that really was there with Punch Imlach and changed your future at that point.
You know, we had beat the Islanders. We went against the Canadians. We were beat up badly, as I explained, with 4 or 5 key guys all having tough injuries. And sadly, even though we lost 4 games straight, I think 2 of those went into overtime. One was a 1-0 game, and we're out in 4 games. And Harold Ballard blows up the team, brings Punch Imlach back into the mix, which sadly, even if he does come into the mix, okay, just barely tweak the team. You knew you were close. And what he did in less than 1 year, I believe, he traded 13 guys off a team that was in the semifinals. And there was really nothing left. Pat Boutet went to Hartford. Dave Hutchison went to L.A. Tiger and Jerry Butler went to Vancouver. Daryl ends up in Philly. Joel Quenneville and I end up in Colorado. It was so sad. And you know you have a chance, and then it's gone. And It took years for the Maple Leafs to come back, and I don't think it was till Cliff Fletcher got to town that they really turned things around. Yeah. But look at that. They haven't won the Cup since 67. And even though I live in Calgary, cheer for the Calgary Flames, there's a piece of me that still cheers for the Maple Leafs. And wouldn't it be great to see the Maple Leafs play the Calgary Flames in the finals? Oh, I'd love that.
That'd be perfect for you, because then you couldn't lose. That'd be perfect.
That is true.
Listen, you didn't want to move. Nobody wanted to move out of the Leafs there, but you ended up playing for the Colorado Rockies.
Don Cherry.
Don Cherry. What was that like to play with Grapes?
You know what? I love Grapes. Grapes may not have been the best tactician or strategist. His whole philosophy was play hard. You come to play, you put your work boots on each and every day. And in Colorado, oh my gosh, we did not have a great lineup. And I think we set the record that year for most losses. And when you're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs at the end of October, it's tough to get up for the rest of the year.
Sure. Yeah.
But Grapes made it fun. And he was so good when I got traded. He knew the situation with Ardell, and he said, here's the deal. Just come play the games. We'll fly you home after every game, whether you're on the road or not, until the baby is born. And after Leah was born, I think I finally relaxed a little bit, but I probably played the best hockey of my life at that time, because I didn't want to let Grapes down because of what he did for me.
Yeah. You mentioned the best hockey of your life. I think the best, even though you won a Stanley Cup, I think the best team you ever played for, and I would find it hard for you to argue with this one, you're wearing your Team Canada sweat top right now, the 1976 Canada Cup. For those who aren't historians, Bobby Orr didn't get to play in 72. Bobby Hull wasn't a part of the 72 team, but both of them were on the 1976 team. And I could just sit here and list all the phenomenal players that were on that Canada Cup team. Was that the best Canadian team ever assembled?
Well, I think there's a couple with Gretzky and Lemieux later
But
on.
I'm talking about overall. I'm not talking about individual greatness. I'm saying top to bottom in that lineup.
I think there was, I'd have to go back and check, but I think there was 19 Hall of Famers of 23 players on that team. And it was phenomenal. And I was like a little kid having a chance to play with Daryl Sittler and Bob Gainey. And Bob, I have the greatest respect for him, how he played the game. He was big, he was strong. And we were the checking line. And then to have Daryl score the overtime winner.
Sorry. Remind me who set him up for that overtime.
Well, there's this guy, old guy with a much smaller mustache, and Marcel Dion. But you know, the interesting thing when you go back and look at the tape, all five guys on the ice, it went D to D. I think it was Robinson to Potvin, up to me, over to Marcel, and Daryl breaking down the wing to win it. And then Grape came down the dressing room. And I told Daryl exactly what to do.
That was amazing, man. You guys beat the Czechs and then the Czech Republic at that point in overtime. Maple Leaf Gardens, you set up Sittler for the goal. I mean, it just the magic, the goals that you were involved in over your career. Now, listen, you got a real scare a short time ago, and the extent that you're willing to share about this, you and I were chatting about this at the Hockey Hall of Fame briefly. To the extent that you want to share, you got a really major scare. Tell our listeners and viewers about that.
You know, Ardell and I just got home off the plane from Toronto after the All-Star weekend. Had a great time at the All-Star weekend. I had no symptoms whatsoever. Got off the plane, walked about 200 yards, and my legs got rubbery, had no chest pain. And I called Ardell, and she didn't even get to me. And I went down for the count. And luckily, two nurses traveling to Hawaii, both celebrating anniversaries, didn't know each other, jumped in to try and help save me. And the policeman, Jose Chives, who worked at the airport, got there within a minute and a half, and 11 and a half minutes later, he brought me back. Ardell tells the story, well, you got 3/4 of the way to heaven and they rejected you. Figure out what you got to do. So I am the luckiest guy because as my doctor told me, she said, if it happened on the plane or in the parking lot, you probably had no chance. And so I owe a tremendous amount to those three people. And obviously someone was looking after me, and I get to spend more time in the game I love, but especially with my dear wife, Ardell. 4 kids, 4 spouses, and 8 grandkids.
How are you feeling now? You look great.
You know, I feel great. I walk every day. I do bands, just trying to stay in shape. It hasn't helped my golf game, but I'm here. I feel really good and very lucky.
Man, and you know what, Lanny, we're so thankful that those people responded, those 2 nurses, that police officer, and my gosh, when I heard that you were going through that, it was real tough to hear that. But you look fantastic, and I mean the fact that you and I get to chat so often, and now to do this in this podcast, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, buddy. I love you. You're a great man, and it's just so great to tell stories with you.
Oh my God, I could stay on all day. I know you might have some other people you might have to visit with, but it has been a pleasure and an honor. And thank you for always doing what you do, especially on Hall of Fame weekend.
Oh, it's so much fun. Hey, before you take off, we do this thing we call 5 Fast Facts on the show, where I ask you 5 quick questions. You give me the first 5 things that come to your mind. You ready to play?
Okay. I want to play.
All right, let's do it. It's time now for 5 Fast Facts with Stanley Cup champion and Hockey Hall of Famer, the legend himself, Lanny McDonald. Who was the best teammate that you ever played with?
Daryl Sittler.
No doubt about that one. The success you guys had was amazing. Who was the best coach you ever played for and why?
Well, I have to name two. Roger Nielsen in Toronto, because he changed the game. And then Bob Johnson in Calgary. I had the luxury of two great coaches that taught us all so much about the game and how they broke it down and made it easier to win.
Who did you hate playing against the most and why?
Well, again, two guys. Bob Gainey, and there's a great story there. Bob and I played just about every shift against each other, but we get drafted together in 1973. He plays 16 years. I play 16 years. We retired together. He wins the Cup in 86 against us. I win the Cup in 89 against him. And we retired together and go into the Hockey Hall of Fame together in 92. So cool. And the other guy, and bless his heart, no longer with us, Clark Gillies.
Yeah.
He was so hard to play against. He was big. He was strong. Skate like Bob Gainey. And he was one of the big reasons why the Islanders won 4 cups in a row.
And it got him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Next question.
Absolutely.
After all your success in your career, both on and off the ice, what's the one piece of advice if you could go back and talk to your 15-year-old self, 15-year-old Lanny McDonald, what would you have said to him?
You know, I try and do this to kids' teams all the time. Bring your best game, but more importantly, bring your best effort and attitude each and every day to the rink. Have fun each and every day. Find a way to be the best teammate you can, because before you know it, it's over.
One final question for you. If you hadn't become a professional hockey player, what career do you think you would have had instead?
Well, oh my gosh. You take those tests in school, and one said I was supposed to be a forest ranger, and the other one said I was supposed to be a long haul truck driver. I am so glad hockey worked out.
And you know what, though? The mustache worked great for hockey. It would have worked great for a forest ranger and great for a trucker as well. So you made the right choice with your career and that legendary stash. Lanny, thanks so much for playing with us. I appreciate it. 5 Fast Facts with Lanny McDonald. Lanny, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, brother. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're feeling so well. It's been so great to actually sit down for a half hour and have this great conversation. Thank you, pal.
Gino, keep up the great work, continued success, and thank you.
Our guest, Stanley Cup champion, Hockey Hall of Fame legend, Lanny McDonald. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by Domino's Pizza and Athletes Care. If you're watching the big game at home or hungry right now, Domino's has you covered. Check out the Domino's Mix and Match Deal. Medium 2-topping pizzas, pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken or classic chicken wings. Any 2 items for only $8.99 each. Canada's favorite pizza at Domino's.ca. Athletes Care is proud to be celebrating its 26th year offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athletes Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 25 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at overtimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. The Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. As well, please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at O-Time Podcast. Until next week, I'm Gino Reda saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the Domino's Overtime Podcast.